Chapter 15, Wounds and Whispers, New Orleans, July 1925. The doctor's office was a narrow, dimly lit room above a pharmacy in the Marigny, a neighborhood where the city's bohemian edges blurred into its working-class roots. The air smelled of antiseptic and old cigar smoke, a faint tang of whiskey lingering from the doctor's own habits. Julien Dubois sat on a creaky examination table, his shirt off, his side bandaged where Victor Leroux's claws had torn into him during their fight at St. Roch's cemetery. The pain was a dull throb now, dulled by the doctor's stitches and a shot of morphine, but the weight of the night, physical and emotional, pressed down on him like a storm cloud. At 35, Julien was a man scarred by more than just the wounds on his body. His Creole heritage, his Catholic faith, and the supernatural reality he'd faced head-on had left him raw, his dark eyes shadowed with exhaustion and resolve. The anointed silver medallion sat on the table beside him, its glow dimmed but still humming with power, a reminder of the ritual they'd disrupted, the life they'd saved, and the enemy who'd escaped. The spirit girl from his past, her hollow eyes in the bayou, marking him as the marked one, lingered in his mind, a ghost that refused to rest, tying him to Leroux's unfinished ritual. His hand brushed the rosary in his pocket, a reflex that felt more like a lifeline now, though the prayers of his childhood offered little comfort against the darkness he'd seen. Celeste Moreau stood by the window, her practical blouse and trousers stained with dirt and Julien's blood, her auburn hair loose and tangled, her green eyes fixed on the street below. At 28, she was a pillar of resilience, her journalist's instinct to uncover the truth now tempered by the fear and relief of the night's events. She'd fought vampires, saved a life, and nearly lost Julien, the man who'd become more than a partner in this investigation. Her small derringer rested in her purse on the chair, her notepad beside it, the urge to write warring with the need to process what they'd been through. She glanced at Julien, her expression a mix of concern and determination, the memory of his blood on her hands still fresh. Eloise Dubois sat in the corner, her red dress torn at the hem, her dark hair disheveled, her face streaked with dried tears. At 25, Julien's younger sister was a jazz singer caught in a nightmare, her betrayal, coerced by Leroux's threats, still a raw wound between them. She'd helped save the young woman on the altar, redeeming herself in the chaos, but the guilt lingered, her beads clinking softly as she fidgeted, her gaze darting between Julien and the floor. The doctor, a gruff man in his 60s named Dr. Fontenot, finished washing his hands in a basin, his voice a low rumble as he dried them on a towel. "You're lucky, Dubois," he said, his Cajun accent thick, his eyes flicking to the claw marks on Julien's side. "Those cuts were deep, but I got 'em closed. No infection, far as I can tell. Rest a few days, don't go chasin' trouble till you're healed." Julien nodded, his voice gruff, his Creole accent softening the edges of his words. "Thanks, Doc," he said, wincing as he pulled his shirt back on, the fabric sticking to the fresh bandages. "But trouble ain't waitin' for me to heal. We've got work to do." Dr. Fontenot shook his head, muttering something about stubborn detectives as he left the room, the door clicking shut behind him. The silence that followed was heavy, broken only by the faint hum of the Marigny's nightlife drifting through the cracked window, laughter, a trumpet's wail, the clink of glasses in a speakeasy below. Celeste turned from the window, her green eyes meeting Julien's, a flicker of relief breaking through her concern. "You scared me back there," she said, her voice low, a vulnerability in her tone that she rarely let show. "When Leroux got you, I thought." She trailed off, her hands clenching into fists, the memory of his blood on her hands, the fear of losing him, too raw to voice. Julien's expression softened, a rare warmth in his dark eyes as he stood, crossing to her despite the pain in his side, his hand resting on her arm. "I'm still here," he said, his voice gruff but gentle, his Creole accent a soft cadence. "Thanks to you. You got that girl out, kept Eloise safe. I couldn't have done this without you, Celeste." Celeste's cheeks flushed, her hand covering his for a moment, the air between them charged with a quiet intensity. "We're a team," she said, her voice steady now, her green eyes filled with a fierce resolve. But LaRue's still out there. We stopped the ritual, but he's not done. Not with you. Not with the city. We need to find him. Finish this. Eloise stood, her beads clinking softly, her voice trembling as she spoke, her guilt a heavy weight in the room. I'm so sorry, Julian, she said, her eyes brimming with tears. I never wanted to hurt you, I thought. I thought I was Savon myself. But I put you in danger, and I'll never forgive myself for that. Julian turned to her, his expression a mix of pain and understanding, his dark eyes searching her face. You made a mistake, he said, his voice low, his Creole accent thickening with emotion. But you made it right. You helped us save that girl. LaRue played you, Eloise, like he's played this whole city. You're my sister. I ain't losing you to him. Eloise nodded, a sob escaping her as she stepped forward, wrapping her arms around Julian in a tight hug, her tears soaking into his shirt. He hugged her back, his hand resting on her head, a silent promise to protect her, despite the danger still lurking in the shadows. Celeste watched them, her heart aching for the siblings, but her journalist's mind was already turning to the next step. She pulled the 1895 case file from her purse, flipping through the yellowed pages, her green eyes scanning for anything they might have missed. We need to figure out where LaRue went, she said, her voice sharp with focus, her fingers pausing on a page near the end. There's a note here, something we overlooked. It's from your father, Julian. LaRue rumored to have a secondary lair in the old plantation district near the river. Suspected bolt hole if ritual fails. Julian's eyes narrowed, his hand tightening on the medallion as he released Eloise, crossing to Celeste to read over her shoulder. The plantation district, he repeated, his voice low, his mind racing. That's out past the city limits, old estates, abandoned after the war. If LaRue's got a lair there, it's where he'd go to regroup, plan his next move. Celeste nodded, her green eyes meeting his, a flicker of determination in her gaze. We can't let him get the upper hand again, she said, her voice resolute. We need to go after him. Tomorrow, once you've rested a bit. We've got the medallion, we know his weaknesses. We can end this. Julian hesitated, his hand brushing the bandages on his side, the pain a reminder of how close they'd come to losing everything. I ain't at my best, he said, his voice gruff, his dark eyes searching hers. But you're right, we can't wait. Laurel'll come for me again, and next time, he might not miss. We need to hit him first. Eloise stepped forward, her expression fierce despite the tears still drying on her cheeks. I'm coming with you, she said, her voice steady now, her beads clinking as she squared her shoulders. I owe LaRue for what he did to me, to us. I ain't sitting this out. Julian looked at her, a mix of pride and worry in his dark eyes, and nodded. All right, he said, his voice gruff but warm. But you stay close, and you do what I say. No more secrets, Eloise. She nodded, a small smile breaking through her guilt, a promise to stand by her brother in the fight ahead. Celeste gathered the file, her journalist's mind already mapping out their next steps, supplies, a map of the plantation district, a plan to track LaRue before he could strike again. But as she looked at Julian, his face pale but resolute, she felt a pang of fear, not for herself, but for him, the man who'd become more than a partner, more than a story. Let's get some rest, she said, her voice softer now, her hand brushing his arm, a gesture of comfort that felt more intimate than she'd intended. We'll leave at first light. Julian nodded, his hand covering hers for a moment, his dark eyes filled with a warmth that scared him as much as LaRue did. First light, he agreed, his voice a low rumble, his Creole accent a soft cadence in the quiet room as they settled in. Julian on the examination table, Celeste and Eloise on chairs nearby. The Marigny hummed outside, oblivious to the battle that had raged in the cemetery, the battle still to come. The medallion's glow cast a faint light across the room, a beacon in the darkness, and Julian felt the weight of the future pressing down. The plantation district, LaRue, the price Mama Zora had warned about. New Orleans was a city of shadows, and they were about to step into the deepest one yet.